Jon, you have an interesting background. You went to Bowdoin.
I did.
Then you worked for the NBA, and you worked for Ask Jeeves and IAC and AOL, where you were the president of Patch, their local news service. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then co-founded AOL Ventures.
Yeah.
So you seem to be going down a certain kind of path. And all of a sudden, you are running this secure messaging app company. So tell me a little bit about how you went from AOL to Confide.
Okay. So I had spent 4 years at AOL in various executive positions. I was going to leave, and sort of serendipitously, one of my co-founders, who at the time, actually, his name is Howard Lerman. He's the founder and CEO of Yext, which went public recently. And he emailed me and said, "Hey, Jon, I'm thinking of hiring somebody who used to work with you at AOL. What do you think?" And I emailed back the same 3 words that we all do when we get that email. Anyone? Anyone? I'll call you. Right, right? So I called him, and he's a busy guy, and I got his voicemail, and then I went traveling for AOL, and he called me back and got my voicemail, and 6 days later, and about 7 voice messages, we finally connected, and we said, wow, that sucked, right? What a simple question, should I hire somebody, and what a painful experience. Why is that? And is there something here that we could solve together? And what we realized is, you know, the permanent digital record of the internet is terrific for certain things. Hey, where should we grab a beer and all that? It's horrific for other things, which is sensitive communication. And so that was the aha moment for Confide. And I said, let's do this. And we gathered up some engineers, one of whom is here today. And we prototyped Confide. We thought it was really good, and we put it in front of about 300 beta testers, including a lot of early stage venture capitalists. Got some great feedback, and then in January I left AOL and we started Confide.
That's great. And how much funding have you raised to this point?
So in February, so we started in January. In February, raised just under $2 million from great early stage investors, SV Angel, David Tisch, Jeremy Stoppelman, Google Ventures, now GV. Mandy, hi. So good to have you. Thank you for everything. WGI, Mike Walrath from Right Media, and Noah Goodhart from Moat. First round capital, how can you forget first round? So great investors who have been terrific to us. So that was a little under 2 million. About a year ago, we did a seed extension, raised about another $1.5 million, so about 3.4 all in.
Okay, great. Since we have a lot of VCs here, I figured we should
Let's get the numbers out of the way.
Okay, so let's go through some other sort of basics of Confide before we get to the really interesting stuff. How many people use Confide at this point?
You know I'm not going to tell you that. No, I can't give you any. No, so look, here's, so we don't give out user numbers, but also what's sort of interesting about that is that as a confidential messenger, we actually can't track a ton of stuff. So almost everything we track is aggregate and anonymous, so we do have active users, we do have how many messages get sent on the platform, but that's sort of something that's unique to this business, I think. But things are going quite well. What can I tell you?
Can you tell me, like, how often do people, so I love Confide, but I don't
Yes.
use it terribly often, because for me there's sort of like a specific use case,
Yeah.
which is, you know, gossip or some sort of, you know, leak. Yeah, how often do people check in? And
There's a cohort that this is what they use as their everyday messenger, and obviously that the Dow Mao on that is fantastic. And then there are people, I guess like you, that when there are confidential, sensitive things, and you use other messengers and other email, and you use Confide for that. That's kind of the way we pitch it. This is not replacement. Email's fantastic for certain things. iMessage is great. I use it all the time. But when you have sensitive communication, I mean, you're insane if you are still using regular text and regular email. How many poster children do we need for leaks and hacks to finally migrate?
Right. Well, okay. So speaking of that, I've followed Confide lightly here and there, and then all of a sudden, Confide was everywhere in the headlines earlier this year. I'm assuming some of you, if not all of you, sort of saw these stories, but it was in the Washington Post and Wired. I think you were on morning television talking about it. But
Yep.
White House staffers were sort of like desperately leaking their unhappy stories about the Trump administration using Confide, which was great. Did you have any idea that they were using it, or did you find out like everybody else by reading the Washington Post?
So, first off, we don't, as I said, we don't know a lot about our users, right? So I can't confirm or deny that is the case. I read everything you do, probably more about Confide, I imagine. But here's how that kind of went down, it was kind of interesting. So I get a Confide message from a guy I went to high school with. It was probably December or January, and he says, "Hey, do you know, like, a lot of the Trump transition team is using Confide?" And I said, "No. And are you sure? We have competitors, and how do you know?" And he said, "Well, they're contacting me on Confide." And I said, "Oh, okay, well, that's pretty, okay, so that feels likely." So I'm sitting there with this information, it's like December, January, I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. But what can I do? I tell my wife, and she's like, "Wow, that's interesting." And that's about as far as I can go in the conversation. And so, then, to their credit, Axios reaches out and says, "Hey, we're on Confide. We've noticed a stream of sort of GOP political operatives kind of coming on to the system. We'd love to talk to you about it. We can't mention names, but can you?" And so I do that interview. Mike Allen runs it in his daily, and this thing starts moving, taking off, and everyone's calling us. And then, as you said, about a week later, there was a front page article in the Washington Post about some of the disarray in the White House, and in the third paragraph it says, "And White House, people are using Confide to leak." And our numbers are just going through the roof. And it's getting all kinds of publicity, and we're like playing defense, trying to handle all the press inquiries. And then it was great, and everything was awesome. And then I'm sitting at home one weekend and watching the numbers, as all us CEOs do, and I see all of a sudden we get to the next stratosphere, something's going on, and I'm like, what just happened? And I started searching for Confide, and Politico wrote a story that said that Sean Spicer had called a meeting at the White House with all of his lawyers and all of the White House staff, and it was a phone check meeting. And he said, "Everybody take out your phones, and if you have Confide on your phone, that's a problem." And he said, "Just so you know that this is a widespread policy, I'm even going to delete Confide from my phone." And I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God, like the White House is actually using this thing," and that just it took off. That was the number one story on CNN, number one story on Google News, and that was pretty extraordinary.
And he said also, from what I read, these texts that sort of are self-destructing violates Federal Records Act. Did they reach out to you? Did they threaten you in any way beyond threatening their staffers who then leaked that story to the press?
Right, exactly. So no, we haven't been contacted by the White House. You raised an interesting point that also gets a lot of publicity, which is the legality of this. And my position is pretty straightforward, which is, look, there are certain people in certain industries for whom certain communication is regulated. Maybe that's FINRA in financial services, maybe it's the Presidential Records Act if you're a member of the executive branch of the government. If you're regulated, please use Confide in a way that complies with that regulation, just as you would any other communication device, right? Email, IM, the phone. And so that's been our approach and our policy on that.
That's great. So there's all this excitement going on. You're ticking along. You're watching your numbers go up. But of course, as your profile's rising, security researchers are also following you more closely. And within a month or so, you are sort of slammed in the press because this research firm, what's it called, IO Security or something, writes a story, they let their developers know that there are vulnerabilities which get cast as holes in your app in the press.
Yes.
You apparently resolved those, but can you kind of explain to people in layman's terms, because we've also read that story and we're wondering if Confide is safe. So tell us what happened and how you fixed that.
Sure. Yes, so security research comes and tries to find vulnerabilities in Confide. We are able to detect them coming. We're able to actually fix most of their issues in real time. There are some that we can't, and they notify us. And then through responsible disclosure, which is generally how these things work with security firms, They give us a little bit of time to fix the problems. We fix them incredibly quickly, and then they go out and publicize their research paper. Importantly, no Confide user was impacted at all throughout any of this. We made all of the changes in lightning speed, and that is what happened.
Sorry, I don't know if somebody has a question, but so in preparation for this, because I don't cover security, I had talked to TechCrunch's security reporter, who's very good, and was asking her what I should talk to you about. And one thing she said that concerned her was just the advertisement, which has come up in the media. You're describing the app as military-grade security. I don't even really know what that means, so maybe you can elaborate on that.
Sure. It's hard to describe encryption and security, and so we use terms that people have a general sense about. So military grade is one of those terms that we use. I mean, basically, this is end-to-end encryption, and what that means is as soon as you hit send on a message, it gets encrypted. The only thing that can decrypt that message is a unique key that resides, that is generated on and never leaves the device of the recipient. And then once the message sort of detects that key, it gets decrypted. And that is end-to-end encryption, and that's what we mean by military-grade encryption. We then go a step further, right? So there are a lot of companies, increasingly I think more messaging companies are going to be end-to-end encrypted because they really should be. But then after we decrypt the message, we go into ephemerality, right? So after you read a message once, you hit close or reply, and then the message is gone forever. We delete it from our servers and wipe it from the phone. And then we also have screenshot protection. We go through great lengths to prevent screenshots because the screenshot is the enemy of the disappearing, right? If you can take a screenshot, it doesn't disappear. And so fundamentally what we're trying to do is take the privacy and security of the spoken word, right? These words just disappear. And throughout history, conversations have been private and secure, and we're trying to port that to the convenience of digital communication.
Well, it's certainly good enough for me. I was telling my friend Pete, I think it's, I've never tried Signal or Telegram, but I think certain, applications are meant for sort of, different kinds of communications. But another thing she mentioned, which I would have no idea about, but she was wondering why your code is not publicly available for anyone to audit. She was saying, for Wicker, for example, one of your most direct competitors, had also kept that private for a long time. Just went public with it a couple of months ago because Wicker is trying to line up enterprise customers. She was like, there's no way Confide will ever be able to do that, otherwise, because no one will trust it. Why not open it up so people can test it and hack it?
So open source is kind of a double-edged sword, right? In one respect, you've put the playbook out there, which gives people increased confidence. In the other respect, it creates vulnerabilities, and for us, particularly around the ephemerality and the screenshot protection. And so to this point, we have elected not to open source our code, which is something that other end-to-end encrypted messengers like iMessage and others have the same philosophy. And it's something we continuously discuss, and I think we will continue to evaluate.
Do you want to go after enterprises eventually, or?
Yeah, we our business is really good right now, and it's focused on the consumer. It's a freemium model, which I'd love to talk about.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, no, I know we don't have that much time, but I'm jacked up about
$6.99
in-app
a month.
subscriptions. So, no, I don't want no, just about in-app subscriptions is the greatest business model that I don't think enough entrepreneurs fully understand and appreciate, and we could talk about that later. So that's where our focus is. We do have an enterprise solution. After the Sony hacks, we got a number of inbound inquiries from businesses. We built a solution for them. We have customers, but the freemium model is really our focus right now.
That's great. Okay, and I've got to talk to you about one more thing before we get to your roadmap, which is a lawsuit.
Yes.
Someone just filed a class action lawsuit against you saying that your screenshot technology does not sort of protect users. And he has hired a sort of a pit bull attorney who has returned something like $1 billion to clients over privacy-related issues. And I actually had gotten a quote here. Y Combinator President Sam Altman had characterized this person as a leech charted up as a freedom fighter in New York a couple of years ago. So what do you do? Like, what are your next steps here? Do you settle this thing, or?
Well, let me address the lawsuit first. It's so we didn't plan this. I can't comment much on the law firm. On the lawsuit, I will comment. I was going to point everyone to Sam's quote because it and the fact leech and tarted is in a quote I think is awesome. This is a completely unfounded, meritless lawsuit. It's equivalent to a shakedown. if you read this article in the Times, this is what this company does. They go after high-flying tech companies and big tech companies. This will get thrown out of court rather quickly, and I look forward to that day.
That's great. Okay, so tell us a little bit about what is on your roadmap. I noticed you sent me a message today and you had an emoji in it, which I thought was sort of interesting. It was the first time I'd seen that.
So we're a little close to the vest on the program. We're on everything, but we do have stickers as part of Confide Plus with sort of unlimited attachments. We have documents and photos and all of that. We are about to launch an iPad app, which is going to be great. That's sort of one of the top things our customers are asking us for. We are playing around with video, which is the other thing that we get asked for a lot. We have audio, stickers, text, what am I missing? Documents, photos and documents.
Are voice calls coming?
Voice calls are not, that's not something we're that interested in right now. But video I think is super interesting, and we're playing around with the sort of screenshot protection on the video and maybe do something innovative and interesting there.
Thank you. John, I wanted to, does anyone have a question for John? I think we're probably over time, but if anyone would like to ask something. Oh, sure.
I know a lot of messaging companies are having problems with like child pornography and some of those other kind of illegal. Do you guys do anything to combat that, or is there anything that you have in terms of understanding some of these more illicit messaging?
It's really tricky. The short answer is anything illicit or illegal is obviously against our terms of service and privacy policy. The challenge is these are encrypted messages that we couldn't read even if we wanted to, which obviously we don't. And so that is not something we have encountered, and it would present an interesting challenge for us. There was one over there.
Super high level. Why do encrypted messages matter? Like, why do we need it in the world today?
Yeah. Thank you. That's a great question. I mean, I think it's sort of insane the way we communicate digitally, right? So I communicate something, there are now copies of that thing everywhere on servers and backup servers and cloud servers and devices that I have no idea about, much less any control over. And then the recipient retains a transcript forevermore to do with whatever they want. And so, that's crazy to me. And we see the problems with that all the time. Hacks and leaks and surveillance are all a function of these vulnerabilities of digital communication. And so, we sort of said, look, the spoken word has been great throughout history and throughout time. 20 some odd years ago when email was invented, somebody decided that that's the way it should be. And we're sort of saying maybe not. Maybe the default should actually be impermanence with an option for permanence. And so I just think there's so much sensitive stuff and so much dangerous stuff and so many vulnerabilities that that's why this is so critically important. Oh wow, that's great. Okay.
Wait, so how do you answer this before, but how do you compare yourself against Wicker and Signal?
Favorably.
He asked, did you hear that? How he compares himself against Wicker and Signal.
Yeah, so there are two things that make us different. The first is that we're purpose-built, engineered for professionals and business people. So that's why we have documents, that's why we have desktop apps, that's why we allow you to sign up with an email address, not just your mobile phone number, because that's still the identity of record for professionals and business people. So that's one. And the second is that we're not just end-to-end encrypted. We are end-to-end encrypted plus ephemerality plus screenshot protection. And we think end-to-end encryption is important, but it is just one component of privacy and security. And we don't allow you, we're idiot-proof. There's no, oh wait, but this one you can hang on to for a day or a week or a month. It is binary, and that's why you should use us, and that's how we're different.
John, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I loved talking with you.
Pleasure. Thank you.